Each year in the United States, thousands of major crimes go unsolved. When the case has gone cold and police have nowhere to turn, they seek assistance from the public. This is a program dedicated to solving these cases. This is Crime Stoppers Case Files.
Like most urban areas, Chicago and its surrounding cities have had a number of unsolved crimes. Crimes that the public may be able to help solve. I'm Lisa Guillen, and this is Crime Stoppers Case Files. The purpose of this program is to shine a light on unsolved cases in an effort to get you, the public, involved. If you know anything about any of the cases you see today, call Cook County Crime Stoppers at 1-800-535-STOP. You can remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward. Now, let's get right to work. On January 28, 2008, Quanah Shaw was leaving a friend's house with her 16-month-old son, Josiah Shaw. As she was putting Josiah in his car seat, a masked gunman shot Quanah and drove off in her car. The car was found a few blocks away with Josiah still inside. He was dead. Here's the story.
I mean, he was a joy to have as a child. I mean, it wasn't that much time, so I really don't have like experiences of like him walking or laughing or talking about saying mom or crawling. He didn't do any of that, but just in general time I had him, I know he was really spoiled. So he never would get on the floor, and that's probably why he wouldn't crawl. He went to walking first. He knew how to sing his ABCs. He wasn't here that long, so.
Josiah would be our first grandson and our only grandson. And we were happy because my husband, he liked to do things, and he never had a grandson that he can go and do things. It's not the same. We have a granddaughter, but it's not the same as having a grandson to be able to go out and go fishing and do stuff. And we were looking forward to that. And once Josiah did get here, because we were all in the room, we were there filming everything, and it was just a joy because it was a struggle. They didn't know that he was going to make it at first because the monitors and everything just went dead, and they didn't know what was going on. But then they heard a big scream, and he started crying, so we knew everything was okay. But it was just a joy. He was a joy to the whole family. He just made the whole family just light up. And he'd get in the room, sometime he'd get with me, and he just wanted to be with me sometime and just sit up there and just look at me. When he came along, it was just so wonderful to have him in our life, and he was just a blessing during the 13 months that he was there. He would go to church with me on Sundays and sit up there, and everyone in church had got adapted to him. They claimed him as their child, and he was just a joy to be here.
On January 28th, 2008, approximately 7:30 p.m., a female, Quanah Shaw, and her son, Josiah Shaw, were leaving their friend's residence. It was the 2100 block of Virginia Street. And she was saying goodbye to her friend, placing her child, Josiah, into her red Ford Explorer. And once she buckled him into the seat, closed the door, she was approached by a male black suspect. On January 28th, 2008, approximately 7:30 p.m., we responded to a carjacking and shots fired call.
No, that day I was supposed to go to orientation class for substitute teacher. The class was canceled for that day, so I went over a family member's house, and a little bit after that, I went to my friend's house. Earlier that day, I was supposed to meet his father to go and get a partial amount of money for child support. And a little bit after we left from her house, that's when everything happened.
The area, 21st Virginia, that whole area in the city of Gary is kind of a residential, but it's got mixed. You've got a grocery store, gas stations, some liquor stores. You got some nursing homes in that area. It's not the worst area of the city, but it's not the best. I know there's a lot of drug activity, a lot of gang activity in that area, but the actual incident took place in a gated apartment complex.
I did receive a call then that it was okay for me to come pick up the money from my son's father, which was at an auto body shop. Eventually, I took a while later, I went to the restroom before I left and finished talking to her, and when I came out, I started walking out. I placed Josiah in the back seat. I took the car seat and let his car seat down and put it over his head, and he gasped as he always does when something goes over his little face, his eyes. And then I let it down, let the seat back down, and I put my items in the front of the seat, and then I closed the door. And then I started to walk back around the car. And as I was getting ready to walk back around the car, someone made a comment that said, "I said, give me your keys." As I was standing turned the other way, kind of like getting ready to start backing back, the person that was in front of me had a gun. So I just took my keys and tossed my keys and threw my keys to him. And it kind of was a decision of not knowing whether I wanted to run or just giving the keys. But from that point on, I instantly started feeling pain in my stomach.
Once he got the keys to her car, he shot her once in the lower stomach groin area, and at that point took her vehicle with the child in it. The neighbor that she was actually, her friend that she was leaving, actually called 911 and gave out the description of the vehicle and a brief summary of kind of what just happened.
One of my kidneys was hit. I fell to the ground, and that's all I remember. I remember squeezing the snow. It had snowed really bad that time of the season. And I remember squeezing the snow continuously with my hand and just squeezing the snow. I never heard the vehicle drive. I never heard the vehicle leave. As I was laying there, I just started asking God to forgive me for anything I had ever done to anybody ever in my entire life. Just forgive me for anything I've ever done, and protect my baby. But after that, I remember my friend, I kept hearing her hollering out to me, "Am I okay?" But I didn't respond to her. It kind of was like a trance. And literally in my mind, it was like thinking, is this the way it ends for me? Is this the way, when you think about your life, and you know how you just don't know how someday you'll go, whether you'll be old, whether you'll be in a wheelchair, or what happened. That just was my thought instantly. I literally thought at that point that I was gonna die. And so I just was wondering, is this how it ends for me?
Officers responded within minutes, and we actually recovered the vehicle probably the 1700 block Virginia Street, probably 3.5, 4 blocks away from where the original incident occurred. And once, obviously, we got there, the suspect had fled on foot in an unknown direction, and the child was still in the back seat and had received 2 gunshot wounds. So we're assuming between the time that the suspect got into the vehicle and fled to the point where he stopped is when he shot the child. Actually, the mother, Kawana, actually survived. Once on scene, she was treated by medics, and we tried to obtain as much information from her as we could at that point, and then she was transferred to the hospital.
Then I know when I was on my way riding to the hospital, they kept trying to flip me, to find out where the bullet wound was. But I remember riding all the way there. I remember how painful every bump was in the road to get to the hospital. So, and then I remember getting to the hospital, and when I got there, I remember them, everybody was all around me, all over me. And then I know they wanted to raise me up, to do an x-ray so they can see where the bullet was located. And I know that was in pain, and I just couldn't wait. I kept asking me, just give me some pain medicine, give me pain medicine. But while I was laying there, then I did hear them say that they brought him in and that he had a gunshot wound. And so he was I think he was somewhere close. I don't know where he was in there, but I don't know if he was on the other side of me, and he was in there, and they kept trying to get his name from me so they can have all his information. And I heard them working on him, and then I heard him say something about opening up his chest. So I guess they were working on his heart. I didn't remember, after everything happened, I remember all that. I didn't know what else happened. I don't think he had passed.
I'm a registered nurse, and I got a call on my unit from my sister to tell me that my daughter had been shot. They didn't know at the time what had happened to Josiah. So I told my supervisor that I had to leave, and then I called my husband and informed him, and we proceeded to go to the hospital.
Josiah, who was at the time I believe he was 13 months or 16 months old, he actually there were signs of life initially, but he died at the scene.
I didn't know when I was in the hospital, nobody told me until a few days later. So I thought actually that he was being watched by my family while I was in the hospital. And I guess eventually they decided to let me know what happened. But yeah, I didn't believe it was real because I thought that was him that I kept hearing. When I was in the hospital, I thought that was him that I heard playing in the hall. But I guess it was another patient's kids out in the hall, so I know it wasn't him. And then they told me what happened. It didn't seem real.
On January 28th, 2008, approximately 7:30 p.m., we responded to a carjacking and shots fired call. Once we got on scene, we discovered a mother, Kawana Shaw, had been shot and her vehicle had been stolen with her child, Josiah Shaw, inside. Shortly after, we recovered the vehicle approximately 3 or 4 blocks away from the initial scene. Once, obviously, we got there, the suspect had fled on foot in an unknown direction, and the child was still in the back seat and had received 2 gunshot wounds.
I had a problem with a trusting issue, just with people in general. Like after it happened, I stayed in the house. I know the first year I got better after the first year, but I stayed in the house. And if my parents left the house, I would lock every door in the house. I would close every curtain to make sure nobody could peep in to see me. And I would stay in my parents' room and lock the door, and I would stay there the entire time until somebody got home. And I stayed like that for a long time. It took a long time before I could even go out. And I was scared to go out when it was dark. And I was scared of parking spaces or where cars are or where something can happen or people can do something to you. It just made it hard for me. I was more trusting before. Like, I believe every person has some sort of good in them. But I don't know if it was being gullible or just giving everybody too much of a chance. But now, I mean, I'm not that way as far as trusting people, so.
You think about him all the time. We have a piano that's in our living room. He used to like to go in there and play. You think about wanting to be able to take him to church with you and just spend times with him in the summertime. You see the other kids that's growing up, and you kind of try to imagine how he would look or the things that he would be doing. He would have been able to be in school at this time, and he was very smart at his young age. So you just think about all of that things that you could have done and the things that would have made a big difference in our lives. In 2013, it will be 5 years, and it just seemed like it's just at a standstill.
Oh, I think the community was I think everybody was in shock that it was a carjacking. I mean, obviously it wasn't just a carjacking. I mean, somebody left a child in the car, and not only did they leave the child in the car, they shot and killed the child. So, I mean, we got a lot of calls, a lot of outreach from the community. I mean, everybody was shocked that something like this had happened. I mean, I think a lot of people, are kind of numb to the fact that, we have a lot of homicides in Gary, there's a lot of shootings, there's a lot of drug activity, but I think this one kind of really hit home that, hey, wait a second, it's an innocent child that had nothing to do with anything. And as far as the mother, Kawana, goes, I mean, we don't have any information that would lead us to believe or that she was a bad person. I mean, everybody that I talked to, I mean, she was a good person. She, trying to do the right thing, raising her child. She was going back to school. She was working. She's still living with, with her parents, and her parents seem to be decent people. We do have person of interest, which would be the father of the child and the brother of the father, biological uncle and father. As far as information on the scene where he fled to, I mean, that is what we're here for. I mean, there's people out there that have this information. There's people out there that saw him flee. There's people out here, that might have just saw the whole incident occur, but didn't want to get involved. And that's what we're here for. I mean, we know that he fled on foot, and we know from us being in the area so quick that he had to get into a vehicle from that point and flee. So, you know, this pulls more on your heartstrings, I think, you know, seeing a child that's innocent, that had nothing to do with it, that despite whatever happened with his mother, father, or whoever, didn't deserve what he got, and he couldn't fight for himself. And I think that's a little harder to deal with than just seeing somebody else just laying on the street. You know, that's a common misperception that we as detectives, especially in Gary, try to overcome is we're here to help you. I mean, we weren't there. I wasn't at the scene, so I can't tell you what happened. And a lot of people expect us just to get it done. Go arrest the bad guy, but I need cooperation. And without the community involvement, the police department's only as strong as the citizens get involved. We're actually doing this show so we could reach out to the community. So anybody with information that might have information about what happened that night, or even if they heard rumors of what might have happened, we're asking them that they would call us and pass that information along to us. If you have any information, you can call myself, Detective Corporal Jeff Horniak at the Gary Police Department. My phone number is 219-881-7514. And if you have information you wish to remain anonymous, you can always contact the Crime Stoppers hotline.
This family is pleading for your help. If you know anything about the person who committed this cowardly act, please call Gary Detectives today. You can remain anonymous and be eligible for a cash reward. On April 16, 2010, East Chicago detectives were called out to the 3800 block of Parrish Avenue. Someone had reported they heard gunshots. Upon arriving, they were sent to another location on Hemlock Street. There had been gunshots, and there was a victim. 23-year-old Fernando Alcazar. Here's the story.
On April 16th, 2010, East Chicago police officers responded to a dispatch of shots fired on the 3800 block of Parrish Street. It's in the harbor section of East Chicago. 911 calls began coming in, advising that there was possibly a male subject shot in the area of 3716 Hemlock Street.
911, address of emergency.
Hi, I just heard some gunshots between Parrish and Hemlock in the alley on Broadway.
How many shots did you hear?
Pop, so 5.
About 5 shots. Did you see anything?
Yeah. I just drove past the alley and I seen somebody running, but I don't know.
The male that was running, that you seen running, was Hispanic or Hispanic?
Hispanic, but I don't know.
Hispanic male?
Yeah.
Okay, but what was he wearing?
Black clothes, I think.
Wearing black clothing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're going to send officers in the area, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Our first responding officer arrived on scene, located a male down, immediately radioed dispatch. Shortly thereafter, ambulance arrives on scene. The paramedics tended to the victim and determined there were no signs of life. It appeared as though our victim suffered several gunshot wounds to the chest area. We know that our victim, he was later identified as 23-year-old Fernando Alcazar, an East Chicago resident. Our investigation and the evidence shows that he was on the north side of 3716 Hemlock. It's a residential area. When the shooting first happened, Fernando tried to run away. When he was shot, actually falling into a vehicle that was parked in the driveway, which knocked off one of his shoes. He then collapsed in the front yard. He was a young guy. We would see him pretty regularly. He had a girlfriend for a number of years. He would always be walking around with her. You know, no police contacts, just kind of minded his own business. We knew that he was walking, literally minutes before he was shot, he was walking with another male Hispanic towards that house on Hemlock. So, you know, we feel as though maybe he might have been, you know, ambushed right there. We know throughout the course of our investigation that there are some people that are out there that have information. It was a sunny mid-afternoon April day. There were a lot of people that were out. There were residents in close proximity to the crime scene that were out. Initially, at the onset of this investigation, information was coming in pretty regularly to investigators. It has since slowed down. At this time, we don't have any suspect information, and we are just urging anybody, no matter how minimal the tip or how minimal the information, to please call us. We feel very strongly someone knows something that's very close to that address at 3716 Hemlock. Somebody saw something, somebody heard something, and we just need that one break to bring justice to the family. If anybody has any information, no matter how minimal, if you wish to remain anonymous, you can call 219-391-8500. Our direct line to the East Chicago Police Department Detective Bureau is 219-391-8318, and you can also call Crime Stoppers as well.
Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Crime Stoppers Case Files. Keep up with the show by liking us on Facebook. Remember, we are here every week with more crimes and more families needing answers. These are your neighbors, this is your community, and you can make a difference.